Hello people. Tonight I'd like to take you on a little trip down memory lane. Back to when I was 16 years old. I left my little town here in the Republic of Ireland when I was 15 years of age. I headed to London, the big smoke we called it, to work on the building sites. I had family living in Hemel Hempstead and Watford. So I spent the first 6 months in Hemel Hempstead and then I moved to Watford. And 3 of my uncles started bringing me to the snooker club every Saturday. This was like clockwork, every single Saturday. I loved snooker. Back here in Ireland, probably from the age of 10, I was winning tournaments in our little club here in my town. And I had many trophies. I loved the game of snooker. And I was handy enough. So going to this snooker club every weekend in Watford was godsend to me. I loved it. I loved the game. Now the 147 snooker club was on the High Street, the Parade, they called it, in Watford. And I'd like to know in the comments if someone could help me and tell me if that club is still there, because that was a very, very famous club. Jimmy Whihire, Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry, they all played in this club at one time or another. But anyway, we'll go back to the night in question. I was 16 years of age. And like I said, we were going to this club every Saturday night. Beautiful place. Go up a big stairs. There were 16 snooker tables, 2 pool tables, a couple of slot machines, fruit machines, whatever they call them, and a little bar where you could get your pint, bring it down to the table and play away for the night. Now I was always with 2 or 3 of my uncles or one of their friends. There was always 4 of us. But anyway, I was going to this place for about 6 months and I was playing very, very good snooker. Very, very good snooker every time. Because I played it from a younger age. I know I was only 16, but anyway. This night, an old man, oldish kind of man, approached the table that we were playing on and started watching. And he seemed to be watching a lot of my shots. I didn't know who he was. I hadn't a clue in the world who he was. But the lads knew who he was, my uncles and friends. I hadn't a clue. But after the second frame that night, this man approached me. Now there were 16 tables in the club. Anyone watching this video from that location can confirm exactly what I'm on about. But there was one table up beside the bar that I never ever seen anybody playing on. And later I would find out that that was the table that all the professionals played on. Jimmy Whihire, Steve Davis, John Virgo, Dennis Taylor, all their pictures were hanging up all over the club. So this man approached me and he said, "You're kind of a good snooker player, young man," he said. "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Ireland." "But I was actually born in Wales," I said, "Newport." So he said, "Would you like to come up to table 1 to play me for a few games?" And this is God's truth, 100% God's fact. So I looked at the man and I looked at the lads, my uncles, and they were kind of smiling. So being young and brave, didn't know who this man was, I said, "Sure, no problem." As we approached the table, he said, "Okay, Kenny," he was after finding out my name. He said, "Okay, Kenny, what we'll do, we'll play the best of 3 for £20. Now, £20 was a lot of money back then, in 1986. But I was shit hot at snooker. And here was this old chap asking me to play him for £20. Sure, Kenny had no way in the world of knowing he was playing a 6 times world champion until the games were over, obviously. But anyway, we broke off the balls in the first game. He told me his name was Ray, that was it. Never heard of him. And the killing part about it, years before I left my little town, I watched every single frame of snooker for years on the television. Dennis Taylor, Jimmy Whihire, Alex Higgins, Stephen Hendry. I could name out hundreds. But I loved the game. I watched it, but I'd never seen this man before play. I never even heard of him. So anyway, he broke the balls in the first frame. My 3 uncles, sat down, and a couple of their friends. And next, after about 5 minutes, there was 40 or 50 people standing around the table. So this was kind of making me paranoid. I was young, fit and healthy, with no fear. But I couldn't figure out what was going on. So like I said, he broke the balls in the first frame. I made a 42 break. He went in and potted a few balls, and I ended up finishing the frame. I bet him in the first frame. And I was thinking away to myself, geez, this is going to be a handy £20 now. Do you know what I mean? I kind of hate taking it from an old man, but a bet is a bet. If I lose, I got to give it to him. So anyway, I'll never forget that night in my life. Brilliant night. But anyway, frame 2, I broke. I got 1 shot in that second frame. And something told me he was after leaving me win the first frame. I don't know why. Because I knew he was good by the strike of the ball. But he missed very, very easy balls. So I knew he left me win the first game. So he won the second game. So we kicked off on the third game. We were 1 each. The best of 3 for £20. And as I was playing, 2 of my uncles were kind of sniggering behind my back. And that was making me more paranoid. They knew exactly who the man was, but I didn't. Anyway, it was tat for toe in the third game. I knew he was only playing around with me. So he ended up winning the third game. He leathered me in the third game. So he won the bet 2-1. I walked up to the man. I said, "You're a good player, Ray." I was only 16, remember. And I put my hand in my pocket and I took out £20, a £20 note. And he turned around to me and he said, "You obviously don't know who I am, do you?" I said, "No, but you're a good snooker player." Every single word of this is 100% facts and truth. He said, "You know what you'll do, Kenny? Put that £20 back into your pocket," he said. "And keep playing. Never give up," he said, "because you will make it. You have the potential to make it." He said, "My name is Ray Reardon." I still didn't know who the man was. And obviously we'd no fancy phones back then. Today if someone said that to you, you'd be on the phone straight away on Google. Who's Ray Reardon? Who's Ray Reardon? But we all got together at the bar after the 3 frames. Myself, the uncles, friends. Ray, he didn't drink that night. And completely out of the blue, I found out who he was. Ray Reardon, 54 years of age. That's how old he was in 1987, sorry. And I was 16. And then one of my uncles said, "That man is 6 times world. You're after playing a 6 times world champion." My God, I didn't know what to do. Well, I said, at least I won 1 frame. But I tell you, that was one of the best experiences I ever had in my life on the snooker table. Actually playing a world number 1. And it's funny, the week later, when we went back to the club, I absolutely loved that club, the 147 in Watford. I ended up missing Jimmy White by about 10 minutes. I knew Jimmy White, Steve Davis, all them, but before that night I'd never ever had heard of Ray Reardon. Obviously he was a 70s man, 70s world champion, so I wouldn't have to seen him on TV. But one of the nicest men, when he turned around and said to me that night, "Put the £20 back in your pocket, Kenny. I'm Ray Reardon." And he said, "Keep playing and don't ever give up," he said, "because I can see the potential in your actions," he said. "You're going to make a good snooker player." So that's a little bit of history there, folks. And that's God's truth. At 16 years of age, in the 147 Snooker Club in Watford, Herts, I played, I'll actually say I had the pleasure to play a 6 times world champion, Ray Reardon. It was the highlight of my snooker life. Rest in peace, Ray Reardon. October 1932 to July 2024. You wasn't just a great snooker player, you're an absolute gentleman. And to think back, we were actually two Welshmen as well, even though I was raised in Ireland. I was born in Newport. But a lovely memory to share. Thanks for listening.